So, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Rikard Engberg and I'm an equity research analyst here at Erik Bank. With me I have Henrik Ekelund, CEO of BTS, and Jessica Parisi, head of BTS North America. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard.
And Henrik, can you please summarize the last quarter in just a couple of sentences and why it became yet another record quarter for BTS?
I'd like to summarize the first quarter. It's been a wonderful quarter. It's amazing to have such a rebound from a crisis, to come back so strongly. It's been a quarter of growth. It's been a quarter of progress in virtual solutions, and it's the quarter that is the beginning of a new long era of growth.
Okay, good. And can you please describe why you founded BTS and what problems do you solve for clients?
You know, I was working in management consulting, and I saw how clients did not execute our recommendations. So we've defined the best strategies, and clients often didn't execute them well, fully. So I saw there was a problem to take a strategy into action. And that problem was mostly about winning the people and training the people to execute the strategy. So that's the problem we're solving. And at that time, I ran into a wonderful tool, computerized simulations, which is a very effective way of modeling the future, living the future, and training the future.
Okay, good. And BTS, Henrik and Jessica, BTS has been through a number of crises. And can you please describe how this recent financial downturn differed from, well, the last couple of ones that you've been through?
You know, it's been similar in some ways. In a crisis, what I've learned, and this is the fourth crisis I take through BTS, what I've learned is it's important to act quickly, but to think long term. Sometimes companies, they make the two mistakes. They act slowly and they think short term. So that's very, very important in a crisis. I also know that every crisis can be handled, and every crisis holds the opportunity of change things that's going to be advantageous for you in the future. And so this crisis has been similar to the other three, but there was one big difference, because in the other crises we looked at a market that, you know, went a bit south and down, but here we were actually legally forbidden to perform our services. Okay, so imagine 70% of our business just couldn't be done. So we were facing a loss of 70% of our revenue because of lockdown legal reasons. That was a big, big difference.
And can you please describe how you handled this situation in order to, well, you didn't lose 70% of all revenue. So how did you act in the beginning of the crisis?
So we had a pretty clear plan, right? To Henrik's point of act quickly but think long term. So the first point was to keep all of our people safe and to retain them, because we would need them for this quarter and ongoing quarters. The second point was to generate as much cash as possible to weather, potentially really negative storm for a long time. The third point in terms of acting quickly was to immediately hold the belief that every service we have can be done virtually and at a world-class level. And in order to execute on that, we just proactively told our clients we'd convert to virtual from day one. And then the last point, of course, prudent with any extra costs, including the usage of external contractor employees versus full-time as much as possible. Anything to add?
I mean, what you've done beautiful in the US is to switch to new customer segments. Because in any crisis, there are some industries that are hit badly and some industries that are okay. So in a beautiful way, you switch to tech, to pharma, to healthcare, some other sectors.
Yeah.
So that was a key element. And let me just build on what Jessica, this was your idea and the strategy. You said, Henrik, because the clients were doubting to go virtual. So Jessica then came up with the idea that let's do all the redesigning for free. We'll tell our clients, you have it in your budget, and we'll redesign it for free. Of course, that cost us quite a bit of money, but this way we moved a lot of clients quickly into virtual, and we learned how to do that best in class.
Okay. And can you briefly describe how the industry has changed due to COVID when it comes to delivery and when it comes to how you basically do your services?
I mean, I think the first point is there's bigger demand for our services. I think there's a heightened sensitivity that companies have to take care of their people, and with everybody being virtual and remote, there's a bigger need to make sure that strategy is made personal for them, a bigger need that they know how to lead their teams virtually, that they know how to sell virtually. That's probably maybe the first point. Secondarily, I mean, whoever has the most effective virtual services is going to win, right? So I think our simulation-based approach inside of Zoom or Microsoft Teams has been extraordinarily well received. Maybe as a more general thought, I think services that are about the overall well-being for people has also increased in demand, right? So it's not just about strategy alignment or being a better leader, but it's also mental health and, you know, the whole person. I think we've seen an increase in that demand as well.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's some new trends coming into the market right now also around sustainability, around diversity. You know, those and around stakeholder management. Okay. So that's also changing a bit the demand picture. And as Jessica said, you know, before anyone could do training, but if you don't do it very well now virtually, it's tough. And the opportunity for us, who really are top level in virtual, is significant.
And looking to the future, what do you think the mixture will be between physical events and virtual and digital? Have you started looking at it, and what is your point on that? What do you believe people would want to do in the future?
It'd be fun to guess and then see what happens.
Yeah.
But, we are, at least in the US, our clients are starting to ask for in-person, again, starting towards the summer and into the fall. I think there's pent-up demand to be together. So we'll definitely start to shift by then. My best guess is 50-50. What do you think?
You know, our clients and the people, they've learned the advantages of virtual. You don't have to travel. It's convenient. You can even do it from home. You save a lot of money on hotels and travel. So there are many advantages. So virtual is here to stay. But there are also, people love to meet too. You know, we don't want to sit at home only Zoom. That gets boring in a while. You know, and so physical is coming back. And I'm saying 1/3 physical, 2/3 virtual, and Jessica is saying 50-50. Let's see where we end up.
Okay, cool. One question I have, since, as you say, when you do it virtually, you can basically be at home, you can save money from traveling and accommodation. Do you see that you can increase your share of wallet when it comes to like personal development on firms? Because they, instead of spending 30% on, let's say, housing, they can now spend 100% on education. Is that a trend you see, or is it just that they buy a service and they don't do anything for money that will be used on accommodation?
Yes. I mean, you're still going to have some companies who will cut as much cost as possible, and if they can save on travel, they'll just save on travel. But I think the most that I see, especially the training and the services related to a shift in strategy, they'd much rather train people for longer to ensure that habit is formed or the change is enacted, and or they'd prefer to give it to the majority of people as opposed to an elite bunch. So yes. And I don't know what you've seen, but I think travel budgets can be as high as 25, 30, 40% of a total budget. So it frees up some budget for us.
It's interesting. BTS will then take budget from airlines and hotels.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you take half of it, it would be still an increase in share of wallet. And my next question is to both of you. And well, if you look at the US market, how does it differ compared to Europe and rest of the world?
Okay, I'll start. You can talk about the US. But if I compare what I see, the US market is a bit ahead in the demanding new things, both content and technology. The US market, the companies are willing to do bigger bets. So they sign bigger projects and also global projects. The US market companies are willing to take risks, you know, willing to try new providers, willing to go big in a better way. Then Europe is I think an advanced market, but companies are a little bit cautious and a little bit holding their wallet too much. And the US actually invests more in people. Interesting, you know, when I started in the US, Europe was ahead. And so US has overtaken Europe in investing in their people. And most of the world is, of course, it's big differences between very developed markets like Japan and Korea and developing markets. So that's a big mix of many things. I mean, what would your view be, Jessica?
The only thing I'd add is if you compare industry coverage of the US versus most of the world or Europe, we have a pretty high percentage of our revenue in software and tech clients. And obviously they're healthy, they're growing quite quickly. And the services we provide for them are, you know, about pivots, they're strategic pivots, but they're all growth oriented as opposed to big transformations for the most part. And like putting in the foundational leadership and culture stuff that they're trying to do. So that's probably the other difference.
You're right on that. Thinking about how to run it from our perspective, you know, in the US, it's one market, the same language. Yeah. So we can run it very integrated. Whereas in the other markets, we have different languages. We can't really use our resources and move them in the same way. So it's a little bit more complex to organize in other markets.
And what trends do you see in the US that you will come to Europe and rest of the world in, let's say, 6 to 8 months' time?
How would you view that, Jessica?
I mean, I tend to go a little bit more micro in terms of the BTS services and maybe the ones I'd expect to hit more. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you can go higher level. In the US in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've been winning bigger transformation projects against the big 4 firms, which results for us in a longer term partnership and even some retainer models where the team's full time on for a period of time, doing broader services than just the training. So we'll continue to do that and perhaps that will also spread.
Mm-hmm. Diversity, big change in the US, you know, with the events in May of last year. So diversity and inclusion is growing big in America now. That's going to come to Europe and the rest of the world. The sustainability trend is all over. The more modern, agile, decentralized management, I see that a bit more in the US because of the tech sector where it really originates. And I think that's going to come also more to other parts of the world.
Okay, good. And I mean, now a question about your recovery. You have been recovering very well. Do you think that you are gaining market share? And from whom are you gaining market share? Or is it the market that is facing a huge growth now and a recovery?
Yeah, we are taking market share. And we always take market share every year. And we do it because we have very good offerings for our clients. And we do it because we invest in growth, in innovation, and in marketing. So yes, we're taking market share this year, and we will take market share every year going forward.
Okay, fair enough. And is it a fair assumption to make that if you compare virtual and digital delivery to physical delivery, you can potentially have a higher margin? And is it a fair assumption to see that the profits has been growing faster than revenue during the last couple of months and and quarters?
You know, Jessica, I'm not sure what you see, but virtual delivery, it's a bit different. So we had some challenges last year. I would say last year we had clearly lower margins, but we're figuring out, and I think we're seeing this year possibly higher margins in virtual. Digital, clearly, you can have much, much higher margins. How would you see that, Jessica?
I think both virtual and digital allows us to scale our experiences with less BTS manpower. Now, as we become more and more efficient, because, for example, you could do 3,000 leaders for a client at once virtual and just use a few of us, as opposed to in person, it'd be a lot more. Mm-hmm. So yes, yeah.
There are some challenges in virtual because, you know, sometimes instead of having a program for a few days, you spread it out over time. And you also need to sometimes put manpower in terms of digital operators. So the more complex programs actually takes more manpower. So there we need to explain to our customers that they need to pay more. We're doing that as well.
Okay, good. And one thing that I really admired was that you kept your headcount during the crisis. And my next question is, are you firing on all cylinders now? And how is the recruiting market looking?
Yes, and it's hot. We're firing all cylinders and the recruitment market is competitive, but our so far acceptance rates are still in the high 80s, low 90% acceptance. So we're hiring quickly.
I mean, the talent market is very competitive in the US, and with the ongoing boom, I think it's going to be more competitive. What we have a very good reputation for our culture and for the jobs that people do with us. You learn a lot, so that helps us in that tough market.
Okay, cool. And my last question is regarding Europe. We're seeing that Europe is lagging a bit in growth compared to the other markets. And can you please elaborate a bit why? And do you think that Europe can catch up with the rest of the world from here?
Man, we have a fantastic operation in Europe, based on about a half a dozen offices, very nicely integrated. There's some fantastic clients. And what we're seeing is, first of all, they had a really good Q1 both in 2019 and 2020, so it's a tougher comparison. We also see that the companies in Europe are a little bit more hesitant investing. Vaccination is going slower in Europe, and that is impacting the market, I'm sure. The stimulus in the US is much bigger than in Europe, and so on. So the story is the same, but it's slower. But we will get to back to growth very nicely in Europe over time as well.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Henrik. Thanks, Jessica, for taking your time to coming here to Erik Penser Bank.
Thank you, Richard, for sharp questions. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, and goodbye.